This is our Stories from Wartime program. And tonight we turn our attention to the Holocaust and to liberation. Our students, first of all, I want to make sure that we maintain our tradition here. If Rick were here tonight and he can't make it tonight, he would ask how many veterans are in the audience. How many World War II veterans do we have in the audience tonight? Other wars, Vietnam War. How many Vietnam veterans do we have with us tonight? Korean War. How many Korean War veterans? The Gulf Wars. Still a little young for that, I guess. It's always for me very personal and emotional to talk about the Holocaust. I did my PhD in Germany. I've spent the better part of my adult life trying to understand what happened during the Second World War, what Isaiah Berlin described as the worst century there ever was in terms of genocide, in terms of the Holocaust. I've been trying to understand that. And we've asked our students to try to understand what happened in World War II to the Jews by having them read one of the most powerful pieces of literature ever composed, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Show of hands, students, how many of you finished Man's Search for Meaning? Very good. Not all of you, but a good number. Let me just, as a way of introducing the smalls, let me read just a bit from Frankl's description of a day at Auschwitz. They were shouting commands. Detachment forward, march, left, 2, 3, 4, left, 2, 3, 4, left, 2, 3, 4, left, 2, 3, 4. First man about, left and left and left and left, caps off. These words sound in my ears even now. At the order caps off, we passed the gate of the camp and searchlights were trained upon us. Whoever did not march smartly got a kick. And worse off was the man who, because of the cold, had pulled his cap back over his ears before permission was given. We stumbled on in the darkness over big stones and through large puddles, along the one road leading from the camp. The accompanying guards kept shouting at us and driving us with the butts of their rifles. Anyone with very sore feet supported himself on his neighbor's arm. Hardly a word was spoken. The icy wind did not encourage talk. Hiding his mouth behind his upturned collar, the man marching next to me whispered suddenly, "If our wives could see us now. I do hope they are better off in their camps and don't know what is happening to us." That brought thoughts of my own wife to mind. And as we stumbled on for miles, slipping on icy spots, supporting each other time and again, dragging one another up and onward, nothing was said, but we both knew each of us was thinking of his wife. A thought transfixed me. For the first time in my life, I saw the truth as it is set into song by so many poets, proclaimed as the final wisdom by so many thinkers. The truth that love is the ultimate and the highest goal to which man can aspire. Then I grasped the meaning of the greatest secret that human poetry and human thought and belief have to impart. The salvation of man is through love and in love. And after I met Martin and Doris Small this afternoon, I thought about this passage in Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, because they embody this sense of love. Another part. The prisoner who had lost faith in the future, his future, was doomed. With his loss of belief in the future, he also lost his spiritual faith. And that's when he began to decline. Students, you know that Frankl tells us that those who survived the concentration camps never lost their faith. Never lost their faith. And so it's with this as an introduction that I want to introduce a man who endured the unspeakable horrors of the Holocaust, who was liberated near the end of the war in May 1945 by a group of Americans when he was at Mauthausen concentration camp, and who has a most compelling story to tell us tonight. And it's with great pride and honor here that we introduce Mr. Martin Small.
Thank you for the great introduction. Can you hear me? Good evening. My name is Martin Small, and I'm a Holocaust survivor. I would like to thank Dr. Victoria McCabe, professor of Regis University, for inviting my wife, Doris, who is also a Holocaust survivor, where I'm going to speak to you, and we maybe speak to you, as eyewitness on the Holocaust. I would like to acknowledge a gentleman, a friend, my and yours, a retired professor of Regis University, the Honorable Dennis Gallinger. My friends, it feels to me like coming back home. I was here once before. Knowing so many of you, meeting you in my home, enjoying my art, and discussing so many topics like the Holocaust, world affairs, but most important, education, and exchanging thoughts while enjoying pizza and Chinese food. Am I correct? Regis University became a household word in my home, especially by meeting such a good friends, from whom I learned so much, by opening my eyes, my heart, and my mind, rethinking thoughts of lessons and lessons of Holocaust, where love became hate, and trust and respect became suffering and torture. By being with you tonight and giving me so much hope, you gave me new life, where hate became love, and suffering and torture became back trust and respect. But let me not to forget that so many of you lovable and wonderful students who helped me to learn and understand the words I mentioned before. I'd like to thank them very heartily. It is not possible to put years of the Holocaust in an hour or a half hour or 2 hours, but I will try my best. You should know that I have been speaking about my experience in my years for many years, but you should also know that for many years, since the American soldiers liberated the Nazi concentration camp, they called Mauthausen, where I was one of the few survivors, I could not and did not speak of these things that happened to me, my family, and my entire town. Like the Holocaust itself, I did not choose the silence, it chose me. And now, I speak of such things. I am a voice for the voiceless. I speak for myself, for my family, for the men, women, and children who cannot speak, whose voices were silenced by a brand of madness that to this very day cannot be understood. We who are human and caring and loving, thoughtful people cannot grasp the madness of this Nazi era, a bloody era of brutal extermination of Jews and non-Jews alike. I would like to tell you, before I go further, in the Second World War, They were killed 6 million Jews, 1.5 million children among them, but over 45 to 50 million non-Jews. I watched hundreds of them in the concentration camp. American POWs been torn apart. I'm sorry to say this. To learn and to contemplate the Holocaust is to try to identify with the human tragedy that is far beyond your own experience and imagination. I lived through this. I suffered through this. And I still cannot comprehend that visions that still rob my sleep and peace. And at least you can listen and you can read and you can study. You can try to understand that I'm saying to you is very real. Standing before you, you see a survivor, a soul survivor. Miraculously, I am here. I did not know why and how. There are so many images on the Holocaust. You have probably seen pictures by walking skeletons. Skeletons made of trainloads of people at concentration camps. And the brutality of Nazis. But these images are images. They fail to convey what is in the mind of the emotion. They fail to see the depth of the damage on the mind. They cannot explain the broken heart. Millions of broken hearts. And a sorrow that lasts behind a lifetime. The Nazi era was a madness. And madness cannot be expressed in photographs. Photographs and documents cannot begin to explain the mental agony of seeing what these eyes have seen. And hearing what these ears have heard, all of which were behind anyone's control. What we are talking about is behind murder, an isolated case of inhumanity. These are terrible enough as it is. Murder has been with the human race since the days of Cain and Abel. This is not a novel phenomenon, but we had to wait until this 20th century to witness with our own eyes a new kind of murder. A murder which is the most inhuman methods of torture, starvation, execution of innocent, butchery, and worst of all, social acceptance. Try to imagine at what point murder can become socially acceptable. Try to imagine a society it is to kill thousands of people at a time, where it is acceptable to bury my family alive, or where it is acceptable to put thousands and thousands of people like yourself on trains and ship them to gas chambers. This is unbelievable, but it's happened. And we are still from this path of destruction. The bodies may be gone. The suffering still continues. You may ask why and how I can speak about these things. The truth is that I don't know really the answer myself. For those of you who go home at the end of the day, watch a little television, or read a book and then drop off to sleep to wake up refreshed in the morning, I'm envious. To this very day, I am never certain that when I go to sleep at night, I will not be awakened time and time again with nightmares. The effect on me and all survivors of this dark period is permanent and reoccurs for the rest of our lives. We find no escape. We remain restless. So why do I speak about these things? I speak mostly so all of you, will know of the potential of evil in this world. I speak that you will know what happened to me, to my family, to my hometown, to 6 million of Jews, and to the million and million of non-Jews who are victims of hatred. I speak of the experiences knowing that you will never understand. You will never believe it. That more than 60 years have gone by, and I still cannot believe things that happened. I speak of those because we are all related as human beings. Since the beginning of time, human beings have known war and hatred. This always leads to destruction and suffering. I speak to you because together we must learn from the past and find a new way to act toward one another. But mostly, I have to say to you, I speak so that the voices of these who were murdered will be heard. I am, my friends, an unwilling representative for those who can no longer speak for themselves. I speak for my sisters, for my mother, my father, and my family, and more than 86 people who were murdered from my family in the most horrible, unthinkable way. I am a sole survivor. Can you begin to imagine what it would be like to lose all of your family in a few days? You wouldn't like to. I want you to take just a brief moment about thinking your closest relatives. Get the images in your mind. Think about what you love about them and how you care for them. Now you will agree with me that it's unbearable to imagine that these loved ones are murdered, butchered, raped, and buried alive. Can you imagine this gruesome detail? You would not want to. Is this a horrible thing? Of course it is. And these are the images stuck in my head. These images are always in my dreams. And they come to me sometimes in the middle of the day, uninvited. These images of the past are not left in the past. They are always with me. Too many people think of the Holocaust as a Jewish event, as a Jewish experience. Something happened to the unfortunate Jews of Europe. But let me correct this false notion. I must remind you, yes, the genocide of the Jews was part of the Nazi doctrine. However, I can tell you that many millions non-Jews were murdered in the concentration camps as well. Many more millions suffered to death or wounded, soldiers, civilians, women, children, grandmothers, grandparents, rabbis, priests, and babies. These are not numbers. These are human beings with families and loved ones. I would like to go into a certain thing to tell you a story in my hometown before I go any further. I lived in a small town. It was not even on the map. We were farmers. Some people have stores. My friend from school became a collaborator. We used to eat together, play soccer together, like brothers for hundreds of years. But when he became a collaborator, he came to my house one day and took me out. I didn't say goodbye to my mother, my father, to nobody. He took me to the police station, tied me up naked on a bench, and put an iron in the oven. Took out the iron. I felt the heat right next to me. And he says, I'm going to burn you alive, slowly, very slowly. I want to hear you scream. But let me tell you something. I am a great believer in God. I said goodbye to my mother and father. I said goodbye to God. I asked God, please take me as fast as you can. I don't want to suffer. God heard my cry. Another man came in, even worse than him. Another friend from school. He told him something in the ear, I don't know. He put the iron back in the oven. He ran out the house. The other one untied me. I said, go home. Get dressed and go home. I don't know how I got home. I don't remember. That's what they call hatred. I have to tell you that as we speak, there are hate groups trying to rewrite history and say such things never happened. But you should know that records of the Holocaust are not Jewish records. You have many witnesses right here. These horrible murders, method of torture, concentration camp documents, killing fields, gassing, and plans for more efficient ways to murder people, as well as photographs and films were documented by the perpetrators themselves, the Nazis and their collaborators. Mauthausen was one of the worst concentration camps. Every concentration camp was bad. I did not know that they had so many sub-camps around Mauthausen. I was in two of them, and they said there are a few more, but there are many. What is a sub-camp? A sub-camp is a place where Nazis doctors were sitting and thinking methods of humiliate people, of how to destroy people, how to kill people slowly. They should suffer. This is a sub-camp. There are also records by the invading Allies officers who looked upon liberated concentration camps with complete silence and horror. They arrived at the scene, went into a state of shock. And what they saw, human beings reduced to skeletons, lying in piles on the ground, and even some walking. All hovering between life and death, they stared in disbelief. The memory of such things are with these brave soldiers who risked their lives to free us and to save us. May God bless him. There is a Catholic woman in Regis University. Her name is Victoria McCabe, Professor Victoria McCabe, who came to my house with some students. I create artwork, they look at my art, of the Holocaust. My art is displayed on all my walls. She stood in my basement and cried. She cried, as I do, when I think too much about these horrible experiences. She cried like the people I knew who suffered to death in the concentration camps of torture and starvation. She cried also for her father. Dr. McCabe's father was one of the liberators, the American soldier of the Nazi concentration camp called Dachau. What he saw on his arrival haunted his dreams and thoughts for the end of his life. Dr. McCabe's father had a wooden box where he kept memorabilia about his experiences surrounding his liberation of Dachau. The memories kept in his box were so horrible that he could not even bear to look inside or talk about them without first getting drunk. Can you imagine what could be terrible, that after decades you could still not face your memories sober? What did he see? What did he smell? What did he feel? What shocked him? What could have caused such a life trauma of a lifetime? And why did he keep all this memorabilia? I understand. This is an experience that you do not want to let go of. You do not want to. It haunts you. As a human being, you must keep the memories because you are a witness and you cannot turn your back on those who died and suffered. Inside of you, in a dark, dark place, like that wooden box of Dr. McCabe's fathers, dwells dark memories. But as survivors, we owe it to others never to let go of these memories, these faces and names, the loved ones, and the fellow human beings. Now you can see that there are so many victims of the Holocaust. That wooden box belongs to Dr. McCabe's father is a metaphor, a symbol for something so dark that one cannot bear to contemplate with your sane mind. My mind is the same like Dr. McCabe's box. But the difference is I was in the very center of hell. I was a slave. I was a runaway slave. Then I was a partisan living in the forest. Then I was a number without a name, tortured in concentration camp Mauthausen, where I witnessed these things that you cannot even invent in your mind. I was the human being, the human skeleton between life and death. I'm the victim of attempted murder and genocide. I stand here in front of you without my entire family. Who am I? I don't know. I have heard people say that the victims of the Holocaust died and were lost or perished. But these are the wrong words, my friends. These words do not describe what happened. My family, my friends, my entire village, and millions of fellow men were murdered. Yes, they were murdered. And now I speak for them. As a representative in an important position, I do not want to. I am the voice for the voiceless, a silent witness of the remaining links between the past and the future. We cannot afford to live in a world where people are willing to murder and torture others for merely being different or unpopular. We are all children of God. If you do not believe this, you're changing the world. The point of speaking with you is to open your eyes and to urge you to think of the words of Rabbi Hillel and the same words spoken by Jesus Christ. And I quote, "That which is despicable to you, do not do to your fellow man." These words are golden words. They are simple words, wise words, words which fell silent and allowed the Holocaust to happen. The Holocaust is the most horrible extreme example of what happened when you stop thinking about people as individuals with families, loved ones, neighbors, and friends. In order to murder millions of people, to torture them, to treat them like animals, to put them in concentration camps that were so hidden that grown men, soldiers who came from battles, broke down and cried and threw up at the sight before them. In order to do this, there can be no humanity between the perpetrators. You cannot be sane. Normal human beings toss a screaming baby. I watched this with my own eyes. I'll tell you the story. You cannot be sane when a normal human being to toss a screaming baby into the vat of boiling oil in front of its mother, and then go home to your wife and family, and at the end of the day, eat dinner, play with your own children. This is what the officers did. This is what the SS officer did. And their bloody hands will never be washed away clean. I stand here alone in a room with so many people. I am without my family. I come from a wonderful family. I once stood with my grandfather and father in our synagogue reading the anxious words of the Torah. I come from 8, 9 generations of rabbis. I was supposed to be a rabbi. I was a yeshiva student. This is the highest education in Judaism. With these hands, I helped my family build a house. I planted corn and harvested wheat. I was a strong young man living like my neighbors among the Gentiles in peace and cooperation. My friends, this was another world and another time. In these years we call the Holocaust. My little sister was buried alive. My mother and father were tortured and buried alive with them. My entire town is no longer. Every Jew was murdered. Where are they all? Eventually, I ended up in one of the worst of the Nazi concentration camps. I placed called Mauthausen in Austria. This was not merely a death camp. It was a camp in which torture and brutality was the only purpose for its existence. The Nazis used to shout people into a rock quarry for amusements. We were forced to carry impossible loads of stone up endless stands. We were skeletons, 70, 80, 90, 100 pounds. For what purpose? Torture, starvation, pain, agony, and death was the mark of the existence. Is this really existence? Is this really life? Mauthausen concentration camp was a place where the Nazis sent intelligentsia, university professors, artists, teachers, and even Boy Scouts to their death. A large number of American and other prisoners of war were sent there. These were first to be sent to the gas chambers. Gas chamber. Jehovah's Witnesses, Jews, Gentiles, American officers, and others were murdered without the world raising a finger. Now do I know. How do I know about these things? Because I was there. I was by the gas chambers. I watched men, women, and children like animals pushed into the chambers, and within short time they were all dead. I was in the rock quarries carrying, I saw the others, and I was carrying the granite on my back. I was 70, 80 pounds. I don't know how I survived. I don't know. I was stood there in freezing weather on the roll calls. But the Germans came out with dogs. And they said, you, and you, step out. And they put the dogs on them. They were skeletons, nothing, no, not even a piece of meat. But the dogs tearing apart right there. We, standing, we were jealous on the dogs. They got something in their mouth. I saw people beaten to death and starved to death. I always worked by the ovens. I was moving people to the ovens. I tried to many times to go in myself, but something held me back. I could not go in. I put in people for my barracks. Some of them still did legs moving. When at least the United States Army liberated Mauthausen, I was unconscious. I was 70 pounds, a human skeleton left to dead among the dead. Someone must have seen me, a soldier. I will tell you the story about the soldier in a moment. And he heard something moving. He picked me up and took me out. When I lived in Manhattan, Manhattan, yes. Anybody who knows Manhattan, there's a Central Park. I lived near Central Park. I had 2 dogs. I took my dogs in the park every day. In Central Park, they have the mounted police. 300, 400, 500 of them. I knew most of them. But one of them, which was not even my favorite, got stuck with me very tightly. He used to come to my house, very highly intelligent man. He came to my house. We used to go out on holidays and New Year's Eve together. He knew that I'm a Holocaust survivor, but we never spoke about in details. 4 years ago, I moved to Colorado from New York to be with my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I got 5 of them. A few days later, 10 days later, I was asked to speak in Fort Collins University on the Holocaust. Me and my wife, and we came back home late. As we walked in the house, the telephone rang. Who was on the other telephone? My Irish friend, Jim Corey, the policeman. Hello, Martin, hello. Martin, you seem a little tired. You sound tired. I said, yeah, I just came back from an engagement. He said, what did you speak? I said, well, I spoke about the Holocaust, where I was, and then I was liberated in Mauthausen. When I said the word Mauthausen, I felt like he's not there anymore. I say, Jim, Jim, Jim. He came back, he said, repeated 3, 4 times, Martin, you were in Mauthausen? I said, yes. How did you survive? I said, I don't know. He said, I was in Mauthausen too. I said, Jim, you're not Jewish? He said, no, you don't understand. I was one of the Mauthausen liberators. I was an officer in Patton's army, like this gentleman. And he says, let me tell you a story. But before I tell you his story, I'll tell you something else. I was asked in Long Island, New York, to speak one day on the Awareness Week in a synagogue. There were hundreds and hundreds of people there. When I finished my speech, I told them the same thing about the Holocaust and Mauthausen. A man came toward me, crying, and man my age. He came over, so crying is very catchy, so I started crying too. He says to me, "You remember me?" I look at him, I said, "No." He says, "I was with you in Mauthausen." I said, "In Mauthausen?" We don't know each other from Mauthausen because we had no faces. We were skeletons. He said, "But I remember you. I'll tell you how I remember you too. We used to call you the rabbi because I remembered the prayers by heart. So we prayed once in a while to God." He says, "I'm so happy I see you alive. You know, we left you to die. You could not walk. You could not talk. You were completely dead. So we left you on a pile of dead inmates from the barrack and we walked out. But while we were sitting and waiting for help outside, we saw a young American soldier picked you up, carried you out, took you to the ambulance, and they took you away." My American soldier tells me this story when he came into the camp. He is still sick. 60 years later, he's still sick and has nightmares, like many. He says, "We went through the camp." Oh yeah, he said, "We killed there was a battle between the high officers. We killed the commander, and then we went through the barracks." He says, "You know, I came in, if I remember correctly, barrack number 9, my barrack." He said, "We went through, we couldn't go around because the smell of the dead flesh, it was terrible. And as I was going out, I heard something. So I turned around, and this is his words. He actually is supposed to be with me here today to talk about, but he's very ill. And I came over, and I see a skeleton, his eyes half open, his mouth open like he wants to say something. So I picked him up, and I took him out. I was the only one there. You know, I told Dr. McCabe tonight, anybody who believes in God, there's one word. God had a better plan for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here tonight. When at least the United States Army liberated Mauthausen, I was unconscious. I don't remember. But I have to say that my suffering did not end with the day of my liberation. The body healed somehow over the time, not completely. I carry with me a pain that has never left. It is the pain of loss, the pain of helplessness, the pain of hopelessness, the pain of loneliness, the pain of having witnessed this history, which is not just history, it is personal. I carry the pain of a survivor. You are seeing a man who was forced to be a representative of these silent witnesses. But what can I pass to you today? One idea, just to remember. Remember the chimneys. Remember the gates of hell. Remember the bodies that drifted as smoke toward heaven. Remember the screams of babies thrown into a vat of boiling oil. Remember the silence. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I want to tell you something which you will never believe. I was in ghettos where they killed hundreds of thousands of people, labor camps. When I ran away from the ghettos, I went in a labor camp. But the first time I ran away from the ghetto, I remembered a cousin of mine hiding by a Gentile. So I went to see him. I didn't have no family. I lost 86 people of my family, everybody. I was with a friend of mine. But on the way, I remember my father had a friend on a farm. I said, let me go and say hello to my friend. I knew him very well. Polish people, Catholics. God, they should rest in peace. So I came there, and as they opened the door, Martin, I'm glad you're here. You're not dead? They didn't kill you. I said, no, I ran away. Come in, I'm hiding 16 of your cousins. I couldn't believe what I heard. We got together, we kissed each other, we didn't sleep a couple of nights. She had under her kitchen table a carpet, and under the carpet was a door, an opening to go in to hide. And not maybe for 8, 10 people, there were 16, 18 of us already now, me and my friend. We were there for 2, 3 days. All of a sudden they say, police are coming. So we went right in there. The police came in and they start talking to the lady, are you hiding Jews or helping Jews? And older lady, she says, no. I recognize my friend from school. Both of them, 2 of them. And he says to her again, are you hiding Jews or helping Jews? She says, no, why should I do it? He walked over to her with a rifle. Can you hear me? With a rifle and broke her leg right over here. And walked out. Luckily, there was a doctor with us, a Jewish doctor, a young man. He did something, I don't know what he did over there, a little, he couldn't. She didn't cry, but she cried later. 2 minutes later, the horses are coming back, the police. So I said to my friends, we have guns, let's get rid of them. They are 2, we are 18. The lady said, no killing in my house. She was the boss. She was a religious lady. They came in and made sure the story. They broke the same leg in another spot. Can you imagine the pain? Unbearable. And they went away. After a few days, I said to my friend and to my, I can't stay here, I have to go. It's not the place for me. I don't know where to go, but I'm going. So we went and we wind up they caught us, peasants called us, farmers, and they took us to a labor camp. After the labor camp, we ran away through a tunnel. I said, I can do this in 1 hour. It's a long story, but in short, we ran away. I wound up in many months and months and months in cornfields. I eat corn. Then I was caught by the Germans and took to Mauthausen concentration camp. But all this time, a period of a year and a half, I asked God, God, would I do what this woman did over there? You can't believe it, what this woman did. And this was with me through the whole concentration camp. After I got out from the hospital's recreation, what do you call this? This sentence where they taught me how to read, how to talk, how to walk, whatever, how to even to breathe. I came out in Linz, Austria, but they took us to another city, to a big city. And there are many trains going this train all over to Italy. And the train was a train with Russian soldiers, Russian tanks, T-34s. And I don't know where they were going. As I was standing by the train, I tried to get away no matter where. I had nothing with me, that's what I had. One shirt, nothing, to get away from Austria. This was in Salzburg. Anybody know the city, Salzburg? 3 women came over to me. And they came over to me, it looked like they had dirt on their faces. I don't know. One woman said to me, "Are you from Mauthausen concentration camp?" Because I was still like this. She said, "Yeah." I said, "Yes." "Oh, so you wouldn't talk to us." She spoke German to me. I understand German. So I said, "Why shouldn't I speak to you? I don't know you. You came to me." And she took out a pouch from somewhere. She says, "I want to give this to you." I said, "No, I don't want nothing. I don't know who you are. I don't want nothing, please." She insisted. I said, "No, I'm not going to take it." I said, "Put it back." She said, "These are gold, diamonds, and precious metals from the concentration camp Mauthausen. My husband gave me. He was the commander." "I want to give you for a reason." I said, "Don't give me for reasons." She says, "Me and my mother," this is my mother, and this is me and my daughter. They're going to kill us anyway, the Russians, the Americans, because they were looking for them. Maybe she works in the camp too, I don't know. "I want you to save my daughter." When she said, "Me, my mother, and my daughter," I did not see them anymore. I saw my mother and my 2 sisters. And I'm talking to them. Then all of a sudden, God puts words in your mouth. I said to them, "Do you have any liquor in your house?" They look at me, "Liquor?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Go and bring some liquor." They went there, and maybe it took him 20 minutes, a half hour, I don't remember. I was glued to this place and talked to my mother and my sisters. They came back in 20 minutes, a half hour later, I don't know. And they got some liquor. I said, "Follow me." I go over to the officer who was standing by the train, a Russian captain. I said to him in Russian, I speak fluently Russian also. I said, "Where is the train going?" He says, "Are you crazy? I'm going to tell you where the train is going. It's a military secret." I said, "But I got something for you." I took him the vodka, his eyes went like this. He says, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "You see, this is my mother, my grandmother, and my sister. They came out from the concentration camp. Take him away wherever you go." He said, "We're going to Italy." "Take him." I said, "Don't give him the gold. Keep it for yourself," I told her. They took on a plane. The train left in 5 minutes. I don't know where you put him. Under the tanks or in the tanks, I don't know. And they left. I am standing there, and I said to myself, I should be the last one to do something like this. And I don't know, but then all of a sudden I said, "Oh God, thank you, God. I could do it too." A few months later, I went to Italy myself. And there was anybody who knows Rome, Via Nazionale, the main street, there was a little Jewish coffee shop. And people came to put up numbers. I was looking for my grandfather, my father, my cousin, you know. I went there too, you know. I knew they were dead, but you never know. One day, I was there already more than a year. Somebody came from the back, takes me around, you remember me? I look around and say, beautiful woman, well-dressed, with a German accent. I said, no, I don't remember, I don't know you. She said, you remember in Salzburg by the train? I said, oh my God. She says, I'm going here for a year. Every day in this place, I'm looking for you. I saw them twice. We shake hands, we kiss each other. I said, okay, you go your way, I go my way. And that's my story. I said, God, I could do it too. And I'm very proud, very happy. Thank you.
He's 90 years old. 90 years old. What we're going to do now is take a break. Let's take, let's say, a nice 10-minute break, right? 5 more. We need 5 more minutes. Well, by the time they get up there, it'll happen. We've got our cookies and coffee coming, so kind of take your time. What we want to do after the break is hear Doris's story. She was with the Kindertransport from Berlin originally, so we want to hear her story. And then, so we'll come back and continue with Doris's story. Okay?